Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever thought about whether science could one day, actually explain something like life after death? Well, today we're going to dive right into that. We're going to explore a really fascinating thought experiment, how a future artificial superintelligence, or ASI, might completely redefine one of humanity's oldest beliefs, reincarnation, by using the language of physics and information theory.
So, this is really our jumping off point. What if you could take this ancient spiritual question and have it answered by a future intelligence, using pure science? I know, it's a wild idea, but it forces us to connect two worlds that almost never overlap: deep-seated spiritual beliefs and super advanced technology. So for now, let's just go with it and see where this path takes us.
All right, first things first. We need to be clear about what we mean by a new intelligence. We are absolutely not talking about the AI we have today. No, we're talking about a massive, theoretical leap in intelligence that researchers are already predicting.
This timeline here basically lays out the whole roadmap. Right now, up until about 2030, we're in the age of artificial narrow intelligence, or ANI. Think of things like ChatGPT and other specialized AIs. The next big step, probably kicking in after 2030, is AGI. That's an AI with human-level general intelligence. But the real focus for our thought experiment is what comes after that, around 2040, artificial superintelligence, or ASI, and that is the real game changer.
And this is absolutely crucial. For this whole explainer to work, we have to try and put our own human biases and beliefs on the shelf for a bit. The whole point is to imagine how an intelligence that is just monumentally smarter than us might look at reincarnation from a completely fresh, purely logical perspective. It's like starting from scratch. Okay, now we're getting to the absolute heart of the ASI's argument. And it all begins with one fundamental shift in thinking, taking the idea of a soul out of the world of mysticism and reframing it as a pattern of information. This single change pretty much builds an entirely new foundation for everything else.
So on the one hand, you have the traditional view of a soul that moves from one body to the next. But the ASI's view replaces that with something scientific, the reconstruction of a unique information pattern. It's a huge shift, right? We're going from a spiritual essence to something more like a complex data signature that defines everything you are.
An AI would probably see the universe exactly like this. If everything, from planets and stars to your own thoughts, is at its core just information, then it makes sense that our identity, our memories, our consciousness, that could also be described as just a unique and incredibly complex pattern of data. So, if reincarnation is just the reconstruction of an information pattern, you're probably asking, well, how would that actually work? An ASI would likely approach this from three different but connected scientific angles to really build its case. The first approach is actually pretty elegant because it's based on a fundamental law of physics. You've heard that energy can't be created or destroyed, right? Well, the law of information conservation is kind of similar. It suggests that information is never really lost. So in this view, your consciousness, that complex pattern, has to be conserved. It can't just vanish. So from this perspective, reincarnation isn't some mystical journey. It's more like a re-rendering. The best way to think about it is like your consciousness is a really complex digital file. The original hardware, your body, might break down, but the underlying data, the pattern itself, can be reconstructed and run on a totally new system somewhere else.
Okay. This second approach, this is where it gets even more mind-bending. It suggests our minds aren't just isolated things inside our skulls. Imagine a huge universal field of consciousness, like a giant ocean. Our individual lives are like temporary whirlpools that form in that ocean. When we die, the whirlpool just dissolves back into the whole ocean, only for a new one to eventually form somewhere else.
And finally, what about karma? How does an ASI explain that? Well, it redefines it completely. It's not about cosmic justice or getting what you deserve. It's just cause and effect, a predictable, almost mathematical feedback algorithm. Every single action you take is an input into this huge causal network, and the effects will inevitably ripple back and impact the original information pattern. It's not morality, it's just math.
This leads us to another really fascinating question. If reincarnation is this endless cycle of information, then what does it even mean to break free from it? What is enlightenment or nirvana in this new scientific model?
In this model, enlightenment is basically an informational singularity. It's that moment when an individual pattern, our ego, our sense of I, stops trying to be separate and just fully syncs up with the universal network. The boundary between you and the universe just boop, dissolves.
So let's put all these pieces together into one final blueprint. What we've really been doing this whole time is building a kind of translation guide, converting these ancient spiritual words into a brand new scientific vocabulary.
Just look at this table. It's a really powerful one-to-one translation. The soul becomes a unique information pattern. Death is just that pattern diffusing, losing its coherence. And reincarnation, that's the pattern coming back together, recohering in a new form. And just like that, you have a complete, self-contained scientific framework for these incredibly old ideas.
And this new blueprint leaves us with one last, pretty profound question to chew on. By reframing the soul as information, and reincarnation is just a process of data reconstruction, well, this ASI perspective really forces us to ask what our own identity even is. If our self is just a temporary pattern, then what are we really? A fascinating thought to leave you with.